Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Undeniable Culture podcast, where the Undaunted Agency team discusses the business of creativity, culture, and what inspires us to be audaciously creative. My name is Myca Williamson, and I am the account executive for Undaunted.
All right, I am Jonathan Menjivar-Lopez, and I am the CEO, brand strategist, project manager, sometimes goofy person at the office.
My name is Ashton Edwards-Butler, and I'm the creative director, and I'm the goofy person all the time.
Today, I think we're talking about the connecting passion, purpose, and profit, how to be a good person and be in business, right?
Yes, in a nutshell. So I thought it would be beneficial for us to start this conversation off by just talking about Undaunted's purpose. So, Jonathan, CEO, visionary, strategist,
Goofy person.
would you, and that, how would you articulate Undaunted's purpose in your own words?
I think our purpose is to elevate voices and messages that are relevant to our communities. Like, there are a lot of really good organizations. When we work with government institutions, we work with nonprofits, with higher education, with small businesses, and each one of them is doing something that is valuable for, their audience, their target market audience. And I just find it great to be that bridge between them and that audience and what we're delivering in our messages. I think that's a good purpose. Yeah. That's always a difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you here?
Why do you exist?
When you exist, you're like, I'm just doing me,
Yeah, well, and I think that I love that we take an empathetic and like community-based approach to our work and how, we kind of take on projects. And so I think that that's something really powerful. But what would you say are some of the things that, in terms of like growing our team or even like choosing alignment for clients, like what are some of the things that you would say that like we look for that are important to you in terms of, aligning ourselves with people who will work with us professionally or like internally on our team?
Ashton and I were talking about this a little bit ago, and it was we want to work with people who care. Like, we want you to care about not only what you're doing at work, but also what you do outside of work. I think one of the reasons we end up talking about what we're doing on our weekend or, what we're doing in the evening is because we care about one another and, us doing things that are not just work related. And so from our internal culture, perspective, I think that's what caring means. I think from a client purpose or what we seek in a client is that they care about their work. They care about what they're doing. They care about what they're providing. And it's really, I don't want to say it's, but it's a little easier to help somebody who understands the core element of who they are and what they provide and how it helps people than somebody who doesn't, right? And so we want to see that. But also, we want to see that they care about their employees the same way we care about each other, right? That they care about their internal culture and how valuable that bond is when they're working as a team.
Yeah.
And how it impacts the end user, right?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it has to all go back to who your customers are, and that's a little scary sometimes too.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoy about, us all working together is like we allow each other like to show up, fully. Like we talk about our hobbies and we kind of introduce each other to like new things that we're exploring. And I feel like it's like a safe place for everybody to be like their own unique self. And I think we want to see that same thing reflected, in the people that we work with.
Yeah. We were talking about Hogwarts Legacy last time.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh yeah, we were really excited about this kid and stuff. And we asked you, Myca, like, oh, do you play? And you're like, my boyfriend plays. And
Yeah.
I'm very supportive.
Well, see, and I'm a new Harry Potter enthusiast, so I'm still learning, but I'm slowly considering myself a true stan.
Or like every week I have a new book that I'm into. And I'm like, you guys, this book.
Yeah. And I love that. Like, we learn from each other, we inspire each other. I feel like it's a judgment-free zone. And I think that spirit kind of carries out through like the essence of our work.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess I want to talk about, some of like our personal experiences and kind of how, we've all kind of got here and like discovered our own purposes. So maybe Ashton, I'll start with you. Just, were there any particular like moments or experiences, maybe like as you were growing up or even into your adulthood, that you feel like revealed to you like what you were truly passionate about?
Yeah, for sure. So many things. I grew up very economically, modestly, and my mom instilled for me that day one that I needed an education so that, I would have skills that were desirable and set me apart in a market so I can have the kind of job and the kind of life that she wished she could have given me. And that gave me a sense of purpose early on because, she had just provided that for me. And then as I grew, I, started to see, well, it's not just me. Other people and their experiences, how can I get them where they want to go and have the best kind of life that they can have? And as someone who's a creative, graphic design and branding kind of made sense to me on that level because it exists all around us everywhere, every day. And the decisions we make about how we express brands in the world impact people. It's just such a part of our lives.
Yeah, I love that. What about you, Jonathan?
I actually knew that I was going to be in marketing like very early on. And it was because my parents had a family restaurant and they loved what they were doing, and providing community and providing all the food and just that like liveliness at gatherings and stuff. I think they really, really enjoy that element of being restaurateurs. But because you're passionate about that, sometimes some of the business side of things are not as crystal clear, and they're also immigrants. I'm kind of a first generation American, and so for them to come to a new country and then kind of see what the business culture is like and just like having to put it together, I said, all right, I need to understand how this works. And so I always thought of marketing as that glue, here's the product, here's the service, here's how we're communicating, here's who we're providing it to. And so I really got into like the understanding the data points and then translating that into actionable items. And, I think in high school, I was like, all right, I know this is the thing, right? I thought management might be the cool thing, the finance and stuff. And I was like, I'm not good with any of that stuff. I think I like to know, how we're putting all these pieces together and putting a strategy together. So that's how I got into it. And, after a while, I was like, oh, this is probably something that I can do for the communication side of things.
Yeah.
I can really create something cool and bring some art and some liveliness into it, and not just endless amounts of spreadsheets.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we all are kind of like had in some way some inspiration like when we were younger, because I don't think a lot of people are that their passion sometimes doesn't get revealed to them until they're much older. For me, like as a kid, I was like the person who would like cut things out of the catalogs and like glue things in my my sketchbooks, and like I always thought that I was gonna like be a magazine editor, just because that was like the era that we grew up in. And so like 17 magazine and all those things, I just knew that was going to be like my career. And then in high school I was my yearbook editor, and so I kind of just had all these different experiences where I was like doing creative things, but not just like creating the assets, but like the overall kind of building like the strategy and like the creative direction of things. And then I worked with the magazine for a little bit of time. And then having gone and like got my MBA, there was like this business side to it. And so now kind of working on like the business or like account executive side of things, it all just kind of like makes sense. Like I'm able to use a lot of my different skills across different projects. But at the core, it's all about, creativity and like telling stories mixed with a little bit of like business strategy. And so I feel like I have a little bit of a non-traditional path, but I feel like all of the things that I've like done or experienced, it makes sense like where I am now. So,
Sure.
I think that's cool that we've all kind of had those experiences early on that like guided us to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I want to be like a little tattle on myself. I kind of fell into graphic design though. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do at all. And I was working at Home Depot as a cashier, and I was doodling on a receipt, and a lady comes through the lane, and she's like, "Oh, you're an artist?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I like to draw, but I can't make money on it." So she's like, "Well, I work at the art department at Texas A&M Commerce, and we have a graphic design program." Like, I didn't even know that existed, that career. I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you can know a part of yourself and what your passion is, but you don't exactly know how to get there.
Yeah, or how to apply it.
Yeah. And, sometimes you fall into it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
But that kind of falls into like, if you add in, just because somebody tells you like that's an opportunity, like you going, yes, I'm going to take it is kind of like the thing that it makes the biggest sense. Because like my parents were entrepreneurs through and through growing up. Like, there was one business after another, and it was just like this endeavor, and my entire family's like that. And so like in college, I started a little business. I was like, I'm just going to do it, see what happens. And I thought that was kind of be the end all be all, started a business, have kind of accomplished what I needed to, right?
Right.
But that experience, like I learned so much from just saying, yes, I'm going to do that, which was random and out of nowhere, that, like you said, a lot of that stuff carries on to what I'm doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I, spent a lot of time on that business, it doesn't mean it's going to be like, this is what you're going to do and this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was dog grooming. So it was really
a
lot of heavy lifting.
We all have that audacity to get willing to switch lanes and drive towards our purpose.
Yeah. Would you guys say like there's been a time where like your purpose or like your passion was like challenged or like tested in a way, or maybe even like questioned by others?
I would say for me personally, systematically, I faced that at every step. I was a poor kid, a first-generation college student. Most of my family barely graduated high school, if they did. I think my grandmother got to 8th grade. I had literally no help, no assistance, no guidance. Everything was a hurdle. And so while I had the personal passion,
Right.
there were so many things to jump past. And there weren't enough people, even in the education field, who were like, "Oh, I see you're struggling," or "Let me help you. We have these resources." You had to go and find it, like dig it out. I didn't have anyone sit down and tell me you can't do this, but I absolutely had no help.
Yeah.
I end up finding the path of most resistance. It's always like, all right, I can do this thing, and it would be just like very simple, very easy for me to accomplish that. Like, I mentioned going to college and also operating a business, and that's really not something that I needed to do or had to do. And I learned what burnout was really, really quickly because of that, right? It's just if you're doing that and you're doing school, it's like work, school, sleep, repeat,
Right.
forever. And so, 3 years into doing that, I was like, all right, we're done with this.
Yeah.
It's a difficult lesson to learn, but it's a good lesson to see where things can go wrong really quickly so that you can learn really fast. I did not want to be a business owner for 10 years. After that situation, I was like, I'm going to go into being in the workforce and making things as cut and dry for me as possible. And I still kind of dream of that life.
Because you definitely went back into business before 10 years.
It was like 4 years later, and I was like, all right, I'm back in it.
But at least you don't have to lift up dogs.
At least I don't have to live.
There you go.
That's nice.
There you go.
And that goes to like another thing that I think is a little challenging, which is like my dad still believes that I could be a lawyer. He was a lawyer in El Salvador, and he still wants that from me, and so he still asks all the time. And what I do now, like working with brands, it's very different than being a restaurateur or being in the construction industry. You know, it's very
Right.
separated from a lot of industries that my family and, you know, a lot of people in my family kind of participate in, because it's so art based, right? Or artistic. It's bringing that business art side of things together.
Yeah.
And so I kind of show my parents, and they're like, "Oh, that's really cool," and then that's about it. That's
Yeah.
not as much as they. I think to like the adversity of it, I guess, or like feeling like it's challenged. When I look at it objectively, like over a year span or over 6 months or a quarter, I'm like, okay, this, you know, we're growing and we feel very, very confident in what we're doing, and our clients are all. But sometimes in the day to day, like it gets a little grinding, you know.
Yeah.
It's hard to step back and be like, you know, what we're doing is important and it matters a lot.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to see yourself realign? Like, remember why you're doing it?
Yeah, for sure. Like every time I meet up with a client, I think I get that, and it's awesome that we have the opportunity to, you know, talk to clients and be like, hey, you know, like here's where we're working on and stuff. And so I like being part of those meetings because it helps me kind of re-go, oh, you know, this is why I'm doing it, you know. Undaunted existed before I worked here, and the reason why I was able to take over and still, you know, maintain a culture and retain 100% of our retainer clients was because I was so passionate about our client, because I was so passionate about who they were and what they were providing and how they were communicating about themselves. And so it's my guiding factor, I think,
Mm-hmm.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I, got my MBA, my background was in journalism and fashion media. And I remember at the time when I was in undergrad, I had a job. I was working at AT&T in the retail store, and I would get a lot of customers, I'm, engaging with them while we're fixing their phone or whatever. And he would say, oh, I would tell them I'm in school, and they say, oh, well, what are you studying? And I would say, journalism, fashion media, and I would sometimes tell them, and I'm a minor in French. And they would kind of look at me like, well, what is that?
Yeah.
And so for a really long time, it was like I was always having to explain myself and why I chose, this path. And still to this day, people will say, well, I responded back to this because of, how well written your, email was, or, your proposal, or, whatever that was. And all of those are skills that I learned when I was trained as a journalist. And so it's there was a lot of having to remind myself when I was actually practicing or in that field, having to remind myself this is a valid job or responsibility that you have because you're dispensing information or telling stories. But then even once I progressed through my careers, being proud to tell people that I used to be a journalist, and, these are the skills that I have. And again, be proud of that because, in today's digital world, journalism is not, a well respected or, one of the careers that people are advising people to, go into. But I think for me, it was just still recognizing the importance of, taking on that role and being in that industry, regardless of, people's judgments or opinions about, how successful I would be at doing that. So I think that kind of goes back to your point of just kind of realigning yourself with your purpose when things start to feel a little shaky.
Yeah, and you can have supporters in life, but at the end, you have to be your own cheerleader.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that the other people in your life don't have an impact. They do, but they're not in your head 24/7, living your life every moment.
And yeah. And they don't have to be the ones that deal with the consequences of your decisions. A lot of people, they are in certain fields, whether that's like a doctor or a lawyer, whatever, and, they love their career or they love the choice they made. But, I think everybody sometimes has a few like little regrets or maybe wish they had more time with their family or, whatever. So I'm always a big advocate of, making sure that what you choose is really something that like serves you, internally, because over time, you could easily like lose the passion if all you're caring about is like money or, whatever.
Yeah. Maybe you have the privilege to make those choices, of course. Like,
right. That's true.
because like with my background, you work to survive. That's what I saw from my whole family.
Yep.
So I like going into this, picking something that I wasn't going to hate was a really big focus. Like, what am I going to be happy? And when I come home, not be like completely void of energy and life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The things that I enjoy about like what I do now is that it's very closely related to the things that I enjoy in my day-to-day life, right? And it's like I enjoy looking at brands and, making decisions based on of what, brands are putting out there, right? I like how cool you can make a website and how it can animate. And I try to bring that into my work as much as possible, If there's something I see, I'm like, all right, let's take inspiration from this and let's see how we can make it happen for a client and how we can make it happen for ourselves. Like, this podcast, like I love video podcast formats and podcasts, listening on my car drive, from DFW up to Sherman and, back and forth. And it's just a comfort for me. And I was like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's see what we can meet, right? And so those are, bringing those things together and liking what you do, I think is really important too.
Yeah. That kind of brings me to one of the statistics that I found on Zippia, which is like a job search platform. And there was a statistic that said 65% of U.S. workers are happy with their job, but only 20% are passionate about their jobs, which I thought was really interesting. So I thought I would ask you guys, like, what do you think is the difference between like being happy and passionate about what you do?
That's really interesting because I think you can be passionate about something, but also miserable where you're at. Like, because the culture's wrong or that, the work-life balance is off or something.
Yeah.
And vice versa, right? You can be happy but not passionate. And so, like, where's the balance? And
Right.
For me, I've been engrossed in marketing and marketing communications for a very long time. Even before I knew what it was called, before I knew what the name of it was, I can remember building menus and putting them on paper and then going into Word and, putting them on.
Did you use word art?
I did use word art. You know what? I used papyrus.
I believe it.
Comic Sans.
I didn't go that far. But I did make the title of the menu in papyrus because I thought it looked cool. What a time. But, it was great. My parents' food stood out enough where it almost, didn't matter. As long as it communicated something, what's going on, it was totally fine. Being happy, not everybody is happy 100% of the time.
Nobody is, right?
Yeah.
It's always a spectrum, right? So I was talking about this with my wife recently, and it was like, you to know how happy something makes you, you need to know where the boundaries are, right? You need to know where the bad things can happen and how to mitigate them and, overcome them to be successful and be happy in that, whatever you're trying to do, right? Being passionate is very different than that, right? There's just like, when you're doing it that you're passionate about it, and when you step back and that you're passionate, and at least for me, and I find it just to be a switch. It's like, yes, I'm excited to do that, or no, I'm not excited to do that. There's no like, oh, I'm just a little passionate about this, or I'm very, very, very passionate about that. For me, it's either yes, it's a passion, or no, it's not.
Yeah. And I think the idea of passion, I feel like there's no like monetary component to it. I feel like if you're passionate about something, you would do it if you were getting paid or not.
Yeah, it certainly helps.
Yeah, it definitely helps, right? But it's like, for me, like, I love, like, to write poetry. I love to write, period. So I'm like, even if I'm, like, not getting paid, that's something that I would always do. But I think happiness has a lot to do, like, with satisfaction, or like a means to an end. So it's like, I'm happy with this job, right? Because it pays my bills, keeps a roof over my head. I like the people I work with, there's that. But I think the passion is like, would I still choose to do this every day, even if it didn't take care of like all of those things? And so when hear statistics like 65% of people being happy about their job, but only 20% being passionate, to me, that shows that most people are probably in a career that they're not, passionate about, or something that they would have chose. And I think that for people that are passionate about it and they still have happiness, I think those are like the lucky people where you can have both. Because again, to your point, that's a little bit of a privilege, right? Most people just might have to be satisfied with their work because it's allowing them to survive. So I think if you are in a space where you can get both, that's a big deal.
Yeah. That element of, like, for the passion portion of my job is not like we're creating a website, we're creating a logo. The passion side of it for me is we're building a community. We get to bring together the people that we just vibe with, and we get to make something cool together. And it's like, I think I would do that, even if I wasn't being paid for it. I would still like see, like, how can we like get all these people together and make a short film,
Right.
It's probably something.
Yeah.
I like that environment of video, because it's all very collaborative, and you have like a camera on your phone, just go figure out how to do it. And so that's the portion I like doing it, that I'm passionate about, is like, how do we bring a team together and collaborate on something and have one unified project that we can all point to and say, we did this together. And I get to do that with my team. I get to do that with clients. We get to do that with the vendors that we bring in, and that's what I'm passionate about.
Like, I can definitely agree with that, because I'm passionate about helping people, but I'm also an introvert. So doing it behind a screen is much more comfortable for me than like marches or things like that, which I have done those, but it's really hard for me to get myself out there. So I find myself volunteering design work, even though I don't necessarily freelance, like I can. I guess that for me, it's more about pursuing that passion, because from the very beginning, when you go into a creative field as a creative person, you have like this artist core, and you want to be able to express yourself and follow your passions. But when you're doing it for a client, that doesn't always align.
Yeah.
So having your passion projects keeps that part of you satisfied.
Right.
Because I think if you don't have some kind of passion elements in your life, then there's going to be a satisfaction gap.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you have to let your job can be an avenue for your passion. It can be like a channel for it. That it doesn't necessarily have to be like the.
It can just make you happy or pay the bills.
Yeah.
And can help you fuel your passions.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you guys like do outside of work that help you stay inspired, like inside of work? Like, I know for me, like I just kind of mentioned a little earlier, is like writing. Kind of gotten away from it a little bit now that I've been more busy, but like I used to have like a website that was just for like creativity stuff. Like it's not meant for me to like monetize it or anything, but it's just a place where like my poetry lives. I'm really obsessed with music, so I would like make playlists and things on there. And I used to have like a mini podcast on there. We'll call it that. But it was like this place where I could just have like share these stories and share my ideas. And so that was like kind of one way that I was, able to, I guess release some of like the ideas that I had. But now, like in my work, because I explored with, putting all these things on a website or, building all these things, like I'm still able, to use some of those creative ideas or even like tactics in like my professional work. So You guys, like, what are some of the like passion projects or things that you guys have outside of work that help you stay inspired?
Yeah. If I can be really vulnerable, I, not too long ago, was in a very deep depression episode. And it was really hard to connect with any kind of passion.
Yeah.
All of the things I enjoyed kind of weren't doing it for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And as I explored my mental health and got to a better place, I've begun reconnecting with passions. Like reading is a great inspiration to me because I read mostly fantasies. So, you know, that's like a world that we can't even imagine a lot of times. And I play video games and I draw. One of the first things I did as I started coming out of my depression was make stickers because they just made me happy. And then cool, gave them away to all my friends.
Yeah. Nice.
Very cool. Yeah. I'm one of those people who really is like, you should have a work-life balance. You should make sure you divide your time, between home life and work life.
Boundaries.
Yeah, but I don't do it for myself.
Yeah.
So, I love thinking about strategies and understanding new ideas and exploring those and, doing deep dives and research on YouTube videos and online and stuff and collecting all that and saying, all right, this is kind of the ideas, right? So I love doing that. And I think that's probably, if somebody asked me what my hobby was, I would probably say that if I was going to be truthful, or say tennis if I was going to, because I haven't done it at all in the last 3 months. But recently I just, one of the key things that I said I wanting to do a year or two back was like, I want to travel more, but I want to travel with friends. I want to travel with people that I'm that have a passion for traveling.
Yeah.
I do. And I'm kind of like that nerd that likes to like set up all the flights and figure out where we're going to stay and do all the things right and figure out that stuff. And I don't do it very well every time, but every time I learn a little bit more and then I can make it better. So I like doing that. And I've started playing D&D more. Really fun. D&D has been really, really exciting. So it's very similar, right? You're bringing people together, you're building community, you're kind of creating something.
I think travel is a good one. Like, I would love to travel everywhere.
Yeah. It does get a little exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey, are you going to do more writing? Are you going to do more like blogs, poetry?
Go to your...
So I want to. It's just I have to be more intentional about creating the space.
Yeah.
I think, similar to you, Jonathan, I've gotten just so obsessed with like researching and exploring different things when it comes to like business and marketing and, growing in those spaces that I've kind of let that consume all of my time. But very, very recently, I have had, some interest spark and I've kind of gone back to some of like my old works. I'm like, man, I should do that more. So maybe after today, I'll take a little poetry retreat and kind of just release some things. But I'm definitely working on creating more space. That's a goal for me this year.
Yeah.
So I'll share with you guys. You'll be my first little audience.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to, and I think this is a kind of a great place for us to start, like wrapping up this conversation, but going back to like this idea of purpose, I was looking at this article from Psychology Today. It talks about like how purpose is kind of like a North Star and kind of there's a correlation between having a purpose and having improved mental health, or even like its correlation to wealth, or like its ability to help you reframe certain situations. And so how would you say that, or maybe like articulate in your best way, like maybe what your personal purpose is, and like how would you say that continues to, I guess, like influence your like decisions or experiences?
That's a hard question. It's a big question.
It is, right? It's like an existential.
It is. And, like, I think it changes a little bit.
Yeah.
As you go through parts of life.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me personally, what it always boils down to is trying to enjoy life. Like, I went to college so that I would have a better life. And now that I'm out of college and I have a career, my purpose is kind of shifting to having more, genuine experiences about making great memories.
Yeah.
I eventually would like to buy a house, but really my focus is about like, how do I enjoy this one life I have?
Yeah. The enjoyment part of life is difficult sometimes.
It is. Yeah, no, not as easy as you think it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just so much going on sometimes, and you're just like, yeah, I gotta get this done, and there's to-do list and boom, boom, boom. I think that's like ingrained in who we are, in our culture.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd agree with that. That's a good way of kind of
Boiling it down.
putting towards that.
You definitely have to make space for it.
Mm-hmm.
Say,
Yeah.
you know what? The laundry can wait. I'm gonna go have a movie night.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to think more about legacy. As I start thinking about like having my own family and things like that. So I think one of like my big drivers is like what type of legacy I'm going to leave for like my next generation of offspring, if you will. And just being able to establish a foundation that gives them, a life that was very different from mine growing up, or like even my parents. And I just think in general, and again, this is something that I really started to think about within like the last 5 years or so, because I think, when you're growing up, I think there's this really big kind of focus on like what you're going to do for yourself, like individually. And I think now that, I'm older, being in a relationship, thinking about family, it's like, okay, it's not just about like my decisions for me, but like, how do my decisions, like how will they affect like my family and my community? And I think, for me personally, like what can I do that will further, other people that look like me? Because I've been privileged to have access and be exposed to a lot of opportunities that a lot of people who look like me, don't have, or, and I didn't see them in those rooms or spaces. And so I think a lot about that, like when I'm tired or when I'm like, maybe I should try to do something else, or, whatever. I feel like that purpose is like what, kind of recalibrates me to be like, okay, this is the mission. This is like the ultimate goal. So this is just a day, but like in the overall grand scheme of things, like legacy,
Yeah, as a woman, I can really relate to a lot of those, like being in spaces where I was the only person in that space, and staying in that space says something, does something,
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll ever have kids. I'm married, I'm happy, but maybe not. But I do have 5 younger siblings. One of them is 11, and I often think about, what world they're inheriting.
Yeah. For sure.
So for sure, very noble purpose. I think.
Yeah, I think the core thing for me and maintaining purpose. It's such a difficult question.
His eye.
Well, okay, it's multifaceted because like
Yeah.
happiness is maybe what we all want, but there are different avenues for you. It's your legacy, right? I'm more general about it because I don't really know what that means.
Right.
So
yeah, I also want to kind of enjoy life and make that a core tenet of what I'm doing. But there's been many times in my family where it's like our family becomes kind of like the core place where people meet, and that's kind of how I grew up. It's a little less so now that both my brothers are in college and they're all doing their own things, and me and my parents, we live like 6 hours away from each other, so it's kind of like become very spread out. But I dream about that bringing that vibe to my family again. And a part of that is like building a life so you can build a really good home where you can host Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
And have family over and do just a random picnic or a barbecue or whatever. And so my passions are kind of driving me towards those types of experiences, and a lot of hard work to get there for sure. Not only in like getting the things you need to provide that experience, but also in like keeping your family close, making those relationships and strengthening them as we grow up.
Yeah.
Because my brothers are also like, my brother's about to do an internship in Washington, D.C., and I think that's super cool, and I'm really excited for him, but, that's a world away.
Yeah.
My other brother, he's really interested in nursing and in the medical field, and he's just doing a really, really great job, but for his ambition, like the opportunities he needs to follow, they're going to take him probably across the country.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that they're like really putting that out, but like, keeping a culture, we're working and be like, yo, let's get together. Let's staple.
Despite the distance. Yeah.
You want to like hold space for them, essentially.
Yeah.
My wife and I are really big on creating like, an ambiance and experience, and maintaining that. And that's kind of like a little bit of what my job is at Undaunted, and keeping a vibe and making sure that if there's something that needs to be addressed, we address it. And yeah, it's just, I want to find a way of doing that more.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is, but like little by little, I think you'll get there.
Yeah.
Time.
And I think it's the cool part is that, we can continue to give ourselves like space and permission to, especially with how young all of us are, I think we continue to have, room for refinement, as we find different, opportunities and are exposed to different things. I think it's cool that we have like those core principles and passions, but I think that's the fun part about life is that there's so much more space to grow and learn and
surprise
and change. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited we had this opportunity to get to know each other better and share, with others more about our purposes and like Undaunted's purpose.
Yeah. I feel like I know you guys better.
Yeah.
And now everyone else does.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us on our podcast today. You can find more in this episode at the undeniableculture.com.
Yeah.
And just check us out. Let us know what your passions are.
Use #audaciouslycreative. Tag us on Instagram. I think we're Undaunted Agency. Undaunted Agency. You can check out more of like our work and kind of our passions. And we're just doing a series on different things throughout the year, and just giving some information about other people who have amazing passions and what they've done. So check that out.
Until next time.
Bye.